I'm the community ambassador for Product Manager HQ. Here with me is Melissa Brown. Melissa Brown is going to present on how do product owners go from good to great. Melissa is working for Charles Schwab. She has experience in Agile for 8 years. Melissa, you can start with your introduction. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hen. So happy to be here. Thanks for welcoming me today to kick this off. I'm happy to go first, too. So you guys have nothing to compare me to yet, because this is my first webinar as well. I would love to spend some time today to talk about what I've learned over the past 8 years, specifically working with Agile. In the past 5 years, I've had the opportunity to work with many teams, train product owners, train Scrum Masters, and I really do have a lot of joy. It's a passion for me, helping others. So I'm glad I'm here, and hopefully I can save some heartache for some of you today or some pain that I've gone through, and pass along those lessons learned. So click over. Okay. I broke it up in 4 categories, um, starting with partnerships, going to manage expectations, talking about this concept called shift left with your team, and then last but not least, recognition. There we go. Okay, so managing expectations. What do I mean by this? It has been a pain point in the past where we're all a little bit misaligned. And so I've come to find that working agreements can really help bridge the gap that we have that comes in, as we all know, between technology and product. Coming up with a clear communication plan within the team. As a product owner, you'll lean on your Scrum Master heavily for this. But here you can talk to your team about what's expected of you. How do they want you to show up in their refinements? How to show up in planning meetings? How to just show up for your team so you guys can get the best of yourselves each time. My suggestion in that working agreement is to create a template with your team. That template talks through how each epic and each story should be created. On the right, I have an example that pretty much carry this with me through the past 5 teams I've helped stabilize. Very simple. Talk about the value. That's what KBI. Tie that to what are we going to get? What's the goal after this user story? Talk through the product owner's definition of done with the team. And then there in your refinements, you can talk about the deliverables or your tech notes or testing notes. This is essentially ensuring that your team is having a healthy conversation. You need to agree with your team about what they want to show up with already ready. If you see in the bottom, there's references. UX designs usually are pretty important to have before refinement sessions. So every team is different. Talk through your team about what makes sense with them. But definitely, I would suggest a template of always having the same expectations, sprint over sprint. Really helps streamline the conversation and helps you know where to spend your time and effort to get those asks or those features in front of your team in a good state. Trying to go to the next slide. There we go. Sorry, it seems to be a bit of a lag. All right, so partnerships and trade-offs. Something I've experienced over the last 8 years is that product and tech, especially in a big company, they have different reporting structures, so they have different priorities. But don't let that get in your way of talking through your or getting on your technology goggles too. What does this mean? That means that you might know enough to talk with your team, but you don't know enough to size. So I can't even articulate how many times we've gotten in trouble where a timeline was promised to our stakeholders without any agreement with the team. That gives us a fixed scope and fixed timeline, and that's just a lot of pressure. There's only so many team members you can add to help a team out, because usually those new team members are going to be trained by your current team members. So all of that, let's add resources and add money, throw money at something until we get the timeline we want, doesn't actually ever work out that way. It usually works out where the team is stressed, morale dips because we have a fixed timeline and a fixed scope. So always, always, always talk to your team members before communicating any timeline or commitments. I'm not talking about what the team is ready to do or your prioritization conversations. I'm strictly talking about if we know a scope, talk to them before agreeing to a timeline. Back to that tech versus product mindset as well. Be open to their technical suggestions. Usually those suggestions are going to come with going to take a trade-off conversation where your priorities need to take a backseat for a second for a short-term trade-off. But those suggestions usually come with automation. That means we're limiting rework. Usually comes with some sort of modernization that right now we're working so hard to implement something that takes 6 weeks. Well, if we spend 2 weeks here, that 6-week timeline will always and forever take 1 week from here on. So, just hear what they have to say. They're masters of their own domain. So make sure that they have a seat at the table too when it comes to the backlog. And then your Scrum Master is your best friend on the team. The relationship between the two of you, that mutual respect, is really going to be a big determining factor in your success and your growth with your team. Scrum Masters have a really unique lens where they get to focus on what's going wrong, what's going well. They don't have to focus on business priorities as much or all the other stuff that you have to as a product owner. So ask their opinion, talk to them about new work, talk to them about team morale. That feedback loop should not stop before the Scrum Master. That Scrum Master should actually be your best friend, and what could really help take the team to new heights if you guys are in it together. Okay, shifting left with your team. So new product owners get into the game, and I always see the same thing happen. I don't want to say always, but usually I see the same loop happen where our sprints become sort of this mini waterfall iteration with our product owner because that product owner is running around. He's junior to the company, he's junior to the role, so he's going around trying to talk to all the stakeholders he feels like he needs to, trying to please everybody around him. And what happens in that need to spend time with everybody else is he's not spending a lot of time with his team. And so we are falling behind. The team is falling behind with where the product owner is. And it sort of becomes this, what I like to call a mini waterfall, where we're spending the sprint basically getting new requirements from the product owner, digesting those requirements as quickly as possible, trying to get them in implementation so we can sprint on them during the next sprint while still working on our current work. But we have this mini waterfall happening as well with our Agile ceremonies happening. So that feedback loop isn't really a loop that includes the developers, isn't a loop that includes technology. So the concept of shifting left is, you know, despite all of those needs with all of your stakeholders, I'm not saying don't interact with them. I'm saying include the rest of your team. Make sure there's an opportunity for, if there's 3 things on the table and one is sized at 6 months, one is sized at 6 weeks, and one will take 5 days. Usually the technical folks can come in with that sort of sizing to help those trade-off conversations happen. So they can, we can help you whittle through all of that stuff and really get going with your other product owners. So, tech folks help you make decisions. Having them in the feedback loop just makes them feel more a part of the product, coming to you with ideas as well, helps with their own ideation of, okay, as a client interacting, how can I give more empathy? They have the opportunity to give more empathy because they're with you in those opportunities that it's helping encourage empathy within yourself. So probably everybody on your team would also behoove with that empathy conversation. And then understand the basic languages. You should know that your product's on Java versus .NET, and that helps, so that if some new requirements coming down the line and says, okay, but it needs to be built on this application of Java, my team is solely .NET, well, then that's probably not something for your team to be volunteering for. So just basic. Don't have to do everything. I don't want, not suggesting your hands are on the keyboard with them developing, but definitely breaking them out of their little box where they're just requirement takers. They're a part of the whole process. And then a pro hack. I have two of them. I suggest Gherkin as a form of mature acceptance criteria. Watching a product owner go from good to great is the ability for them to put it in given when then. That really helps bridge the ambiguity gap that is possible of, well, I asked for one thing and my team gave me another. Well, that's because you're talking already up front, this is how I'm going to test your scenario, or this is how I'm going to test this new feature. So it really limits the opportunity for a miss or a gap. And then also dashboards. We are thrown out with so much data, and as a product owner, you're supposed to be digesting this data and putting it in the right format and using it to make informed decisions. Lean on your tech folks to use their technical abilities to help build you dashboards. Splunk is a good one. Adobe is a great one. They know all of this stuff too, because they work in technology and use that skill set to your advantage. And then last but not least, to the recognition part. It is really easy in the hustle and bustle of day to day for us to start foregoing ceremonies. Usually, sprint retrospectives is the first one to go, followed by sprint reviews. I would have to tell you, with all my experience, that is one of the first things to happen. Uh, and also, it's the first and the worst, because if the sprint review goes away, your team is losing the opportunity where they get to shine, usually, and they get to show off everything that they've been working so hard for, sprint after sprint. They're able to get on with usually people outside of their team and really show off. And it's just something about morale. If you work so hard on a pretty masterpiece, you don't want to just go put it in a closet and nobody talks about it. You want to go show that out to everyone, and get a chance to hear your praise or even hear feedback from other people in your domain. And then come to your sprint retrospectives uh, with kudos for the team. Recognize some key things, because they're working really hard for you. It takes a lot for a technologist to deliver working code, especially in a large company where we see a lot of old legacy code working together, and trying to get it to work and bootstrapping stuff. So come every retrospective with just those simple kudos of what each one did well, or what some of them did well. It really goes a long way for morale. And just to highlight again, if there's opportunities outside of your Scrum ceremonies, bring those tech partners with you too, whether it be them demoing their work, or whether it be you're shifting left and you're including them to UX research conversations or UX design conversations. Bring them with you, show them that they're a partner and that you care about their opinion, you care about the work, and you guys are all one team. And that recognition really does go a long way for how hard they'll work for you. And that's all I had for today.
Thank you. Sorry, I was muted, but thank you so much, Melissa. That was wonderful. I we have a comment. is JG. Thanks for this. Thank you for joining. Melissa, any other comments or stories that you can share with us?
Sure. So I would just leave you with one story talking about the tech versus product mindset. I had the unique opportunity to work at what we called a digital accelerator at Charles Schwab. And that was our first time really trying to do Agile the right way, where there was no silo, there was self-organized teams with all the dependencies in the same room. And as the leaders of the team, we found ourselves having all of this talent, best of the best, hand selected folks on this team. And we found ourselves churning with requirements, churning with expectations. And so when get on my little pedestal of tech versus product, it's a hard lesson learned there with uh, understanding that okay, I know I have my tech folks and I know I have that mindset, but the product has a different mindset. And we learned that with a very interesting way. So we thought, how are we going to fix this problem? We have all of this visibility. And we decided to meet every single day because we had all this visibility. Let's meet every morning. Those mornings were brutal. We would come in for every before all meetings start, before anybody got there, and it was just a time of basically all of us talking. We didn't see any real big improvement yet until we had a new person join the team, a UX director, and he came in for the first meeting. And he didn't even have to say anything out loud for us to see his reaction of shock and awe that we had come to be a shark's den. We used to make a joke about it. We used to say, "This is our shark's den. Don't come in here with ideas. We're going to just poke through them." And we used to think it was such a funny thing. And then he came in and made us realize, oh, wow, no, if we all are talking super loudly, then nobody's listening and we're not getting anywhere. We're just spinning our wheels. So after that, we made sure everybody's voice, you had a time to talk. We got rid of the talking over people. We got rid of, we're coming with 15 items to talk about today. We started minimizing the amount of scope that we were talking about every day. So we actually started getting things done together as opposed to, that shark's den that we had before.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
We have a question. Han Wang, thank you for joining us. And JG, congratulations on finishing up your TPM certificate. Han Wang is asking, can you talk about how to manage relationship with a customer or supplier?
Sure. So when I assume what you're saying with customer is the client. So when you manage your relationships with your client, I think the biggest thing to do is, well, it depends on your goal. Actually, it's hard to blanket that reaction. If you're trying to get out of them what's going wrong, then that's the sort of conversation you have. If you're trying to get feedback from them, you get feedback by showing them, here is our application. This is what we usually have done, is here is our application. Go through it and tell us what you think about it. And watch them very closely, like watch them how they're clicking on the buttons, where they're pausing, where they feel like they have mess up, where they're asking questions, because you don't even have to verbally hear from somebody what's going on with your product. If you watch them go through it, then you are getting the best value out of there, because some people can't even articulate what they don't like, but their body language will do it for them. So get in there, get talking to them, have them hands on with what you're trying to answer. If you're trying to figure out, okay, my product needs to get better, my clients aren't finishing, they're not, maybe your domain is account open, we have people starting our flow, but 50% of them drop out and never open account. That's a really abysmal statistic. How do we get to 75? How do we get to 80? How do we keep bumping up? You're only going to get that by watching, figuring out what the pain points are by watching somebody use your product that isn't you, because of course you can use it perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that, uh,
Yeah, thanks
Melissa.
for the question.
How can people reach you if they want to continue? asking any other questions?
Sure. So I hope you can send out the deck, and if anything, you guys can look at the template there. You can look at Gherkin. My email address is on the final slide, so please reach out to me anytime. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I really love this stuff. I'm actually starting as an Agile coach, enterprise Agile coach next week. It's my time at Schwab has come to an end after 8 years. So this stuff, I can't tell you how much energy it gives me. So always willing to help and answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to the new role. And
Yeah.
thank you for tonight. It doesn't seem like there's any more questions. Looking forward to connecting with you on LinkedIn and um, your email for anyone that wants to connect with you even more. And I really appreciate you making the time to discuss all of this with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Hen.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Have a good day, everyone. Thanks. Bye.